you to be seated at the back. There's a few seats at the front up here if anybody wants them. Okay, so good evening, everyone. Can you all hear me? Good. A very, very warm welcome to E2E Exchange's 2014 National Reception. Thank you to you all. What a fantastic turnout. Thank you for taking the time to join us this evening. As you all can demonstrate, as you're all demonstrating in this room, today the UK is probably at its most entrepreneurial it's ever been. Tonight is a celebration of that. It's also a celebration of E2E's third birthday and a chance to discuss how we can accelerate this entrepreneurial growth yet further. Before we get to that, I'm exceptionally privileged and would like to welcome our outstanding and world-leading lineup of speakers tonight. The speakers are Keith Krach, Renaud Visage, and one of our founding board directors, Brent Hoberman. Thank you to you all for coming to speak. I'm also delighted to welcome the well-known Chris Blackhurst, who's very kindly agreed to chair this evening and to chair the discussion. Also a huge thank you to our View from the Top speakers. They've been doing their little bit before these speeches, and they'll continue to do some more afterwards. So thank you to all of them for giving their time so willingly. I have a few more sets of thank yous. Firstly, to our 10 brilliant corporate partners. Hopefully you've all got a brochure. Their names are in the brochure. I'll be here too long if I name them all. To my exceptional board and my advisory board, again, many of them are here tonight. E2E would be a very, very different business without them. And finally, to our entrepreneurial sponsors, Summeridge Estate Wines, Perception Live, Naked Marketing, and I Was At. Thank you for sponsoring the event this evening. So, to give you some background on why I started E2E Exchange, in 1999, I co-founded the company, the first company in the world to trade letters of credit online. We sold it in 2004, but unfortunately, as I was mentioning to Keith earlier, we didn't sell it for hundreds of millions. We really didn't have an entrepreneurial network or knowledge about private equity. And 10 years on, trade finance is mostly conducted online. If back then we had been better connected and had looked at the financing options more aggressively, perhaps we've all been celebrating tonight from my yacht in Monaco Harbour than at the Four Seasons. So my board and I have used this learning to really focus E2E Exchange on delivering three key things. One is we provide access to funding. Secondly, we provide access to talent. And thirdly, we connect our members between each other. We do this with a series of different activities. Firstly, we have one division of our business, E2E Exchange, where we have 40 events a year. Under E2E Invest, we help companies to fundraise from angel capital to private equity. Through E2E Exec, we place our executive members, which are serial entrepreneurs and investors and non-exec directors, onto the boards of our earlier stage businesses. So that is really a summary of what E2B is about. In terms of some of the challenges that we've had a lot of challenges this year, but I'd like to share with you some of our greatest successes. What's been happening has business has been closed between our members. We've recruited a fantastic team. We've created a fantastic presence in the Midlands and now are building a footprint in the North. We've launched the 88 initiative. This was with Sir Richard Haygate and Sir Paul Judge to bring Chinese investment into the UK. And we've launched a brand new website, which I hope will come up. This is our brand new website. In addition to that, we've been closing a number of equity financing deals and placing non-exec directors onto the boards of our member companies. In addition, I'm absolutely thrilled to announce that E2E has formed a collaboration with Tech London Advocates, or TLA as it's better known, and I'm sure many of you know TLA in the audience today. The founder of TLA is Russ Shaw. I can see Russ Shaw right at the very back over there. I'm very pleased to announce that Russ Shaw is also joining our board. He is a serial entrepreneur. He's an investor, and he was most recently vice president and general manager of Skype for their mobile division globally. So we welcome Russ Shaw onto our board. Also, and perhaps most importantly to the people in this room, we are about to launch in the next few months our own fund. This will be an EIS, seed EIS fund, to take advantage of the government initiatives. And we'll be providing about £1 million of capital to companies who are looking to raise that kind of investment. The ultimate goal of E2E, and the thrust of all of this activity and why you're all here tonight, is to help make the UK the global epicenter of entrepreneurship. So to support all of this, I'd like each of you to think about your own lives and your own companies and ask yourselves the following questions. What can I do individually to support the growth of SMEs in the UK? What can I do to help build the UK to be the global epicenter of entrepreneurship? We're hosting this reception in the run-up to London Technology Week, which is happening in only 10 days. In light of that, I also want to ask you the question, do you have your finger on the pulse of technology? There's no doubt that over the past 30 years, technology has radically changed the way we do business, and digital technologies are once again transforming global value chains. From books to e-books, from CDs to mobile music apps, companies like Amazon, Apple, so many companies have started a long way down the road, and now they're so much further ahead. These companies are moving forward at lightning speed. I'd just like to take a few examples from the guests here tonight. Brent Hoberman's here. Lastminute.com transformed the travel sector. Airbnb and James Lohan's Mr. and Mrs. Smith are continuing to follow suit and revolutionize the way that we book hotels and holidays. Via the Outnet.com, Stephanie Fair's here. She's made us look at why we should go and shop on the high street when we can buy designer clothes at discounted prices within the comfort of our own homes. Brett Harding's also here tonight. He's the founder of Lovestruck.com, he's just launched a mobile app, and he's changing the online dating industry. In my view, it's only a matter of time before online dating transforms to virtual dating via FaceTime or similar mobile technology. I've shared that with Brett, and hopefully, thank you. One of the central topics discussed at the World Economic Forum this year was the implication of the much discussed Internet of Things. Hopefully you've all heard about that. I'm sure that you're all aware, for example, that Apple has recently announced its plans to enter the smart home arena. Anything that can be connected will be connected, and this is going to change life the way that we know it. Smart learning has also allowed us to create technology capable of working without human interface. Hopefully you've all seen the recent news articles on Google's self-driving car. The prototype has no steering wheel. It has no brake, nor accelerator, and it can be summoned by smartphone. Worrying, isn't it? Last year, the internet economy represented more than 8% of UK GDP, and it's forecast to grow to 12.4% in 2014. This will contribute a staggering $225 billion into our economy. This high percentage is driven not by financial services or the public sector, but predominantly by SMEs and startups. Research from KPMG also shows that in Q4 2013, the UK tech sector recorded its best growth performance for almost a decade, with UK tech companies reporting their fastest improvement in profitability for 6 years. It's the best time ever in terms of UK's technological growth. And it's really, really encouraging to see this. These technologies will be massively and continue to be massively disruptive. Even some of the more influential developments, such as email, will soon be out of date. You heard it here. In my view, it's a matter of time until email is redundant, and we'll be using Twitter, LinkedIn, and their successors possibly, and we'll be doing it mainly on our mobiles. We must therefore position our SMEs at the forefront of the digital revolution. If we fail to do so, the UK and UK businesses will be left behind. The people in this room represent the creme de la creme of the UK's most entrepreneurial businesses. But we must remember that 2/3 of UK businesses don't sell online, and 1 in 5 UK adults lack digital skills. Of the 552,000 startups that launched in the UK last year, 50% failed. Whilst the startup rate is encouraging, the success rate could be better, don't you think? So how can we transform Silicon Roundabout into our own version of what Keith has, Silicon Valley? For our members, access to funding remains the single largest barrier for growth. Amar Hassan is here tonight. He founded a business called Minicabit. It's a fantastic business. Amar was seeking to raise 400,000. He was on Dragon's Den, and he did very well. He's now secured all his funding, but it took him circa a year. There must be a way that we can short-circuit these timeframes. It is true that since the recession, the situation for SMEs in the UK has improved a lot. There are numerous pro-business government initiatives. However, not everyone is aware of them, and even if they are, they're not always clearly understood. Merely addressing access to funding is not enough, though. Our members tell us that we need a whole series of pro-business measures to accelerate growth for them. Therefore, E2E has just launched our own growth manifesto, which I'd just like to share with you. We're calling for London and the South East to be a free enterprise zone, for the abolition of employers' national insurance contributions for jobless people under the age of 25 for 12 months. We're calling for a broader class of shares within the seed enterprise scheme, which should accelerate investment. We're asking for a fundamental reform of the business rate system and the government to pay more attention to business clusters outside the capital in order to spread the social and economic benefit nationally. The second largest obstacle that we see within our membership is the lack of talent. Stimulating an entrepreneurial mindset in schools and higher education is crucial if we're to encourage a generation of tech-literate, high-impact entrepreneurs in the UK. This has been a key topic on the agenda of E2E in our discussions with ministers at the House of Lords, and we're working with higher education institutions in the UK. We've begun at West Nottinghamshire College in Mansfield, which is one of the most deprived areas here. We've established a mirror version of E2E at West Nottinghamshire College. We feel that offering young people experience in an entrepreneurial workspace is the best way to encourage a lifelong passion for learning and to drive and develop disruptive business ideas and disruptive technology. There is no doubt in my mind that the UK has the potential to be the epicenter for startups and a major competitor on the global tech race, but it requires our undivided attention to achieve this. As this room knows better than any other, small businesses and the entrepreneurs who build them are the powerhouse of the UK economy. It's vital that we all recognise this. We recognise their importance. We help them to flourish, and for each of us to have our own finger on the pulse of technology, which is my ask of you tonight, is to think about how you have your finger on the pulse of technology, and I think the debate will give you a lot more insight. And I would now like to ask Chris Blackhurst, and it's my huge pleasure. He is the group content editor for The Independent, The Eye, The Independent on Sunday, and the Evening Standard to share our discussion and to talk to our speakers. Chris, a huge thank you, and let's see what conclusions they come to.
Okay. My name is Chris Blackhurst. I'm available for virtual dates, real dates, dates of any kind. And if you want to tweet while I'm sitting here, I'll try and tweet back and we can get together afterwards. And, I was thinking about the title of this evening, and I was thinking how far Britain's come. It's only 4 years ago that we actually opened Silicon Roundabout, and I was thinking about this. In the States, they got 50 miles of prime Californian real estate. They got Stanford, San Jose, etc., etc. We got a roundabout at Old Street, and they got Steve Jobs, and we got Alan Sugar. And seriously, I remember I reviewed Alan Sugar's book, and for the Americans in the room, he's probably just about our best-known businessman. He's certainly one of them, and he's on TV all the time. And if you asked any kids to name a businessman in Britain, they'd probably name two. One would be Richard Branson, and one would be Alan Sugar. And I remember reviewing Alan Sugar's book when it came out, and there's a whole section in that devoted to why Alan Sugar thinks R&D is a waste of time and a waste of money. And it told me an awful lot about the state of Britain, that this man, and I'm not here to attack Alan Sugar, by the way, he's probably here and he'll be tweeting like mad in a minute. It says something about where we were. That was 4 years ago. We didn't have Silicon Roundabout. We now have Silicon Roundabout, Silicon Fen, Silicon Glen, Silicon Gorge. I mean, seriously, I mean, everything's silicon, and the whole country's sort of gone silicon mad. And but in a way it has. Britain has changed. It's changing very quickly. And I think there's no harm, in a way. I think everyone in this room is either in high tech, or they're in the business of financing high tech, or they want to be in high tech. And the truth is, as I'm sure many of you can vouch, that it's no harm in that sector, in this sector, to play catch up. And that's actually what Britain can do. Britain is very well placed. We have a fantastic education system, believe it or not. We have some of the world's best universities still. We have got creative entrepreneurial instincts from old that are still there. We've invented half the real things in the world came from these shores, and it's in our DNA. And I really do believe that things are changing. I've got 5 children, and 2 of them are small. When they go to school, when they reach secondary school, they are going to learn coding. That's absolutely fantastic. They're going to learn, as part of the national curriculum, how to program a computer. Unbelievable. When I was at school, we didn't have computers. And the way Britain's changing is really fantastic. And so, yes, you know, we have got a roundabout, but it's a nice roundabout. It's good. And there's lots of traffic that goes around it, and we are catching up. So, on that very positive note, I'd like to invite one of the stars of tonight to the stage, Renaud Visage, if you'd come up and join me, who is the founder of Eventbrite, and is a sort of walking success story like lots of people in this room. I was just sort of looking at the website for E2E thinking, there's the entrepreneur, the funder, and then there's the journalist. How would I look on there? Renaud, if we can start, tell us a bit about Eventbrite. First of all, tell people, and I know what it is, but I'm not sure if all the people here will actually know what it is.
So we created Eventbrite to allow anyone, pretty much anywhere in the world, to create any type of events and a presence online for their events and to sell tickets for their events. So an event like this one, for example, is the perfect example of the type of target that we had in mind at the beginning. Gathering, not organized by necessarily people who do that all the time, and we provided tools for them to make their life easier, and that's really what we wanted to do.
how easy did you find? I mean, one of the bugbears of this country, and we've heard mention of it already, is how hard people find it to actually raise the money. Was that easy? Was it difficult? Did it more torturous process than you thought?
Well, I think it's always a difficult problem. You have needs, people have the money, and you need to convince them that you're the right person to invest in.
What would your tips be for convincing? I mean, there's people out there who really want to know.
I think
how do you convince people? We have a program here, it's already been mentioned actually, called Dragon's Den, which people are hooked on, which is basically people appearing before a panel of multimillionaires and trying to get some of their cash. And it's pretty tough. It's not easy.
It's very tough. There's hundreds of startups for the same pool of money that's in the VC firm's hands or in angel investors' hands. So you need to wait until you have the right story to tell, the right metrics to show. That's something we did very well. We were patient enough to wait and until all our numbers were telling a good story, and that we could show how we were going to invest that money and multiply their investment by X amount.
And when it came to raising the finance, where did you go?
We started in Silicon Valley, so that's where we went. My two co-founders are based there. I was in France, between France and San Francisco at the time. It was normal to look for investment there. My co-founder had started another business there, which was founded by Sequoia. We went to Sequoia and many others, and we picked Sequoia in the end to be our first large investor. And
how much were you seeking?
I can't remember exactly what we were seeking, but we got $6.5 million at the time. Right. It was the end of 2009. We were 30 employees. We were selling about $10 million worth of tickets every month.
How big are you now?
We sold $1 billion worth of tickets last year. We're about 140 million a month these days.
Wow.
So we've grown 10 times. We've grown the team 10 times as well in 5 years, less than 5 years.
And what about a float? Are you going to float? Oh.
Well, we raised $200 million total throughout the years. The last round was early this year, $60 million from Tiger Global. We pretty much set on the cash side, so we see an IPO as another potential infusion of cash at some point when the conditions are right. We don't think they're right now. The stock market is kind of not liking the tech stock as much as they did 2 months ago. So we'll be patient. We'll find the right time for it, but it's always an option for us. Yes.
So how did you find Britain? I mean, you said obviously you went to Silicon Valley. We'd like it if you set up shop here.
We did.
But you chose to go to Silicon Valley what would persuade you to come to Britain?
Well, we have 30 employees now. London was our third city when we decided to open an office here already in terms of sales. So it was a natural extension for us to come here, to get together with organizers, to learn about what they need, to talk to them, to support them. It was very natural to come to the UK after the US for us.
And if you were to float, would you float here or in the US?
And the valuations you can get in the US are much higher, I think. So there's no question we would do it there. We're a US company. There's no reason for us to do it in the UK.
This is a killer question. When you're not running Eventbrite, what do you like doing? What's the human Renaud Visage?
I like photography. My dad was a photographer. I always looked at his pictures when I was growing up and wanted to be one at some point, and I took a camera and learned by myself, and I love doing that.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, Renaud Visage. I'll now call to the stage. I hesitate to use the word legend because it's sort of journalistic, and we love hyperbole. We do it for a living. But this man is a legend in the States, in Silicon Valley, Keith Krach. Keith, if you want to come up. I don't know where to begin with Keith. I suppose I could begin by just saying he started a business that went from 0 to $34 billion capital, and that's probably enough for anyone. He was the youngest. I mean, this is so ridiculous. The youngest ever VP of General Motors at 26. Started Ariba. and has now got another fantastically successful business called Docusign. His mission is to rid the world of paper. As somebody who spent all his life on newspapers, we're going to get on. We're going to get on like a house on fire. But he's doing well. It's true. I mean, if he can stop all the amounts of bump that, I mean, I recently remortgaged on a property, and the amount of paper I had to deal with, there's just piles and piles. And if you can stop all that, you're a saint. And take my hat off to you. But Keith, tell us a bit about how you started. How did you go from the motor industry to Ariba? I mean, it's a big leap.
Yeah. I started my career at General Motors, and this is back in the early '80s when robots were high tech, and I put a pitch on to the board of directors of GM. I said, robots are the future. I think we should get into that business. And so we grew this business. We became the industry leader by a factor of 4. And we were selling a lot of robots out in Silicon Valley to the disk drive business. And I remember going out there and going, wow, this is amazing. This is magical. This is the West Point of capitalism. There's a premium on youth, the total meritocracy. Everybody are owners in the company. I just go, and I love General Motors, and they've been great to me. I learned so many things there. I go, I just got to go get a shot.
How old were you when you left?
30.
So you left GM at 30?
Yeah.
Straight to Ariba?
No. Another company called Raz.
Oh, of course, yeah. Well, that did well as well.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And what was it like leaving a big corp? I'll find a weakness. There is one.
And by the way,
he's a terrible golfer.
I don't want all the paper to go away because the article you wrote yesterday, I slept with it under my pillow last night.
I'd like you to go out and buy several 100,000 copies. It's just one under.
My mom did that.
What was it like? I mean, for a lot of people in this room who really want to start a business on their own, and I've often thought about it and never made the leap and were too scared. What was it like leaving a big corporation where you were obviously already hugely successful and effectively chucking it all in and going out on your own? That's a big, big leap.
Yeah. I was just so young. I was fearless. But I can tell you, when went out there, it was kind of like, GM. You're running this 100-yard dash. You're going to be the one. You go out to Silicon Valley, and it was tough at the beginning. I feel like I just got smacked in the face with a 2x4.
Right.
I think the culture out there is I call it kind of jet fighter pilot. You go Mach 3, you're either going into outer space or you're going to crash and burn. The key thing is you just want to do something fast. And if you fail, then you just pick yourself up off the ground, brush the dust off your shoulders and walk across the street and go try it again.
Is it really that easy out there? I mean, you can really take a risk, because here in this country we're probably a bit more cautious, and we tend to, if people's businesses go bust, they'll find it harder raising money in future.
Yeah.
I mean, is that not the case in the Valley?
It's not the case. As a matter of fact, when we are looking for people and talent, the thing that we love.
Are you looking for failures?
Well, what we love is somebody who's had a great experience from a big company, an IBM or a Vodafone or something like that,
yeah.
And then they did get whacked in the face because you learn more from failure than anything else. And the other thing is, when you find folks like that, they want to put a trophy on the mantle. It actually increases their drive. So it's actually a plus.
And what keeps you going? I mean, the thing is, let's be honest, you don't need to work, do you? I mean,
well, I actually went to Docusign for the retirement benefits. So.
But why Docusign? I mean, what is this? I have never seen a market this big in my life. Every
company in the world is a potential customer. Every department in the company are potential customers, and every person is a potential end user. And our vision is to empower the world to keep business digital. The mission is to allow anybody to transact anything, anytime, anywhere, on any device securely. And I think it's a noble cause. I mean, our whole team does. And it's not just about, saving 385,000 trees a year and all that stuff, and we do. But it's giving people freedom. So anyway.
It's also making you a lot of money.
Well, then you can give it away.
Is that what you do? You give it away?
Totally. You're speechless. How much you want, Chris?
On that note, thank you very much. On that note, I'll bring up to the stage now Brent Hoberman, who probably needs no introduction to a British audience. Brent's the co-founder of lastminute.com, founder of Made, Made.com, which I read at the weekend is soon to float, pro-founders, the list goes on and on. So hello to Brent. How are you, Brent? Are you well? Tell me, I know you just, before we get general, just tell us a bit about Made and how did that come about? Because Last Minute, everyone here is probably extremely familiar with Last Minute, but then a bit like Keith, you went on to do something else.
Made actually came out of business that only did okay, actually. So after lastminute.com did all right, then launched one called mydeco.com, which was sort of a bit of a classic mistake in that I was the chairman and not the CEO, because I logically worked that I didn't want to throw myself in quite yet with young kids and all that back into the grind that was lastminute.com. So I chaired a company doing online interiors and furniture and all that sort of stuff in 2007. So the timing was perfect, the execution was not. It goes back to the talent debate that some people have had, and it's slightly galling when you see we had some of the ideas of Pinterest and you see that valuation. Then we had some of the ideas of House. We were doing House before House was, for those that watched it, House just got a $2 billion valuation. But anyway, but the good news is, and so I won't bore you with what the mydeco model was. It was probably like I often do, trying to do too many things at once. But I did have the good sense to say, right, let's do this. Furniture industry is quite outdated, sort of felt like travel 10 years ago when I started last one, and it just wasn't moving. So direct from factory to consumer. So I was like, why aren't enough people doing this? Platform for designers to get furniture made. I found a great person to run it, Ning Lee, who'd done a related business model in France, so he's really the co-founder and he's the CEO. Helped him get it off the ground. It was 50-50 with mydeco and him, and then helped him raise money or whatever, and now the business is doing well. Whether we'll go public or not, let's see where the markets are.
What do you think, in this country we have a sort of, I wouldn't say tradition, because I suppose it's not quite the right word, but we certainly like to write about it in the press, that a lot of our more successful people tend to go to the States or tend to go abroad. I mean, the head of Apple is British, founder of the World Wide Web is British, but they're not here. Wow. Do you think that's changed? Do you think that's changing?
The big problem about being here is actually it's one of scale. It's a very obvious and trite thing to say, but that's what happens when you look at. I looked at when I was doing lastminute.com at the beginning, I was like, God, if I'd done this in America, I wouldn't have had to go into 14 countries to get the scale that I could have got, and multiple languages, multiple regulation, multiple barriers, have to buy businesses in each market.
Did you ever think about launching Last Minute in the
We
States?
did a white label, so we did the poor man's version. We just said, hey, we got a decent brand, let's put something under it, and hope. It wasn't a serious. It was actually, we thought about it, then the bubble burst, and we thought again. So we thought, let's not lose our shirt.
But we have this huge market on our doorstep. Whenever I meet people, entrepreneurs from all over the world, they talk about the English language, the fact that we're placed between America and Europe, the Middle East, etc. And we have this enormous market on our doorstep in Europe, which we're all supposed to be at one with. And are we not using it properly, or is it not working?
I think there's a simple thing that for many businesses, not all businesses, if they're not global from day one, then you're at a strategic disadvantage by launching them here, because you don't, again, have the scale that justifies the innovation and the reward. So we talk a lot about not enough money going into the sector. In in my view, it's not really that. Once your business is ramping, you can get 5 funds bidding you up to a very nice premium. Thank you very much. The problem is getting to that scale, and I'm going back to either it's Europe, it's too hard to launch pan-European businesses. I wonder how many people in this room have actually can truly say their business is pan-European. Yeah. And actually launching into America, we tend to be too late. We're not the global innovator, so there already is an American version of most businesses. And then the opportunities, as the government's been saying, is, well, can we get to Asia before the Americans or Latin America? I think those are really interesting questions.
Yeah. What do you think about this, Keith? Do you think Britain sort of lags behind? Or?
I'll tell you, I've been here this last week. I'm blown away. Shalini is a force. You see the enthusiasm in this room. The way I look at it, if Silicon Valley is the capital, or I call it the West Point of capitalism, I think London is the capital of the world. And the thing that's amazing, I think, about London is, you've got all these great, in Silicon Valley roundabout, and that's where our European headquarters are, and I look at all that, and then I look at all the financial institutions, all the insurance institutions. It's almost like Silicon Valley and New York combined. Right. And for us, that's really meaningful, because our 2 biggest verticals are, the financial services firms, insurance firms. Plus, this is even more United Nations than Silicon Valley. Just hearing what's going on. And the way I look at it, it's like, the whole strategy of Ariba and Docusign was to create this global trusted network. So it's kind of a chicken and the egg thing to get that whole network going, but you got to create a net gravity pull, right? So the more you get, it's just a stronger force. That's the feeling I get when I'm here in London.
Wow. I think we'll now, that's fantastic. I think we'll now open questions up to anyone in the room. I think there should be some microphones hovering. If you want to just say who you are, where you're from, and fire away, ask anything you want. We'll try and answer them as reasonably as we can. Hands up, please. Come on, don't be shy.
Hi, sorry. Adam Twidle from Private Fly. I'm actually really positive about the UK. Since setting up my company in 2008, I've been amazed by how much opportunity and help there's been from the government, from EIS schemes to Growth Accelerator, and from non-government organisations such as E2E. What more can we do in the UK to promote people from overseas to come and set up their companies here?
Brent, you want to?
Well, I think you're right. A lot is already being done. So the what more is the question. I'm one of the Prime Minister's business trade ambassadors. So we actually go, and we were recently in Istanbul as part of the Great Festival of Creativity, building up on that UK brand. We're going off to Hong Kong to do the same thing, Shanghai later in the year, to tell people about the story. I think Tech City was a very good marketing umbrella. Whatever else is credible and good about it, it's actually a very good marketing umbrella to say the UK is serious about this area and this business. I think the biggest thing we can do is honestly have more billion-dollar success stories. And I think what's happened in the AIM market recently, if these stocks are down 15-20%, it's still okay. The AOs of this world, the Boohoo's, the Just Eats, or obviously on London, these are, we talk about valuations. Renaud mentioned valuations being lower in the US. I don't think that those valuations would be much lower in the US of those companies. I mean, they are getting decent valuations when they're so I think that's the story. The other one area which goes back to Keith's point is actually it is getting the message across that the links to corporates here. What's best about doing a business here is the links to corporates. If we make that real, let's make it easier for startups to work with corporates, which is something, I won't do a marketing spiel, which is something we're sort of doing with Founders Forum.
Okay. Any more? Gentleman in the third row. Can't read.
Standing up.
If you stand up.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. My name's Nigel Downing, and I'm here for some free advice, if you don't mind. I'm the founder and kind of general dog's body also of a company called Profitability Learning and Development Services. So, what we're doing currently is establishing a benchmark hands-on educational package that teaches entrepreneurs the basics of entrepreneurship and how not to screw up right from the beginning. And it's based on 25 years of doing roughly the same with multinationals, but this time is for the entrepreneur. So my question to you is that we're at the stage of deciding where to point this. Where would you point it?
Well, you mean pointing it to the market?
The market's huge for this, but you've got to start somewhere. And in my view, getting that right at the beginning is almost as important as the package itself.
Okay, maybe Renaud?
For your company, for your product?
Yes.
Where do you sell it? That's what you're asking?
Exactly.
Well, you can start in this audience. I'm sure a lot of people would like to know what not to do when you start a business. There's plenty of entrepreneurship-focused programs and groups, so definitely these are your prime targets. Plenty of associations around SMEs as well that would benefit from the advice that you give.
Keith, do you have a...
I totally agree with Renaud. I think you do the JV right here with ED Exchange.
And I'll say I'm actually doing a related business. So one of the businesses we're starting is to help to do a global virtual accelerator for entrepreneurs.
How good is
that? So happy to talk and see if there's a way of doing that. So we have a CEO running that. So
I would change your name now. A bit too long.
Any more?
Charles McLaughlin, Academy for Chief Executives. There used to be the management gap in this country. There used to be the leadership gap in this country. Now we're talking about entrepreneurship. What I'm impressed by the panel is the scale of your organisations. Do you believe that the UK has closed the management gap, has closed the leadership gap, and can we build the entrepreneurship that we need without those two things in place?
Brent, do you want to...
Well, the one thing on the management is that the management here, sort of going to my earlier points, actually have to be better than in America. And I think, unfortunately, they don't get the credit because it goes to this point of having to scale across these geographies and to deal with some of the regulatory issues that still exist and barriers and also some of the anachronisms. So I think the management almost has to be better. I think the skills gap is absolutely below. But in a world like where we are today, you can work with the best talent wherever they are. So it's not a perfect excuse. But clearly, more and more can be done to get to the one I always look at is user interface design, which is so important now and makes such a difference to many of these US players have this world-class UI. If there's anywhere where world-class user interface should be coming from, it's London, where we have these brilliant art colleges, and I think it's their transformation from that sort of all that great graphic design they're doing into web design doesn't seem to be happening, which puzzles me. And I was on the governor of the University of the Arts, and I didn't solve the problem.
Keith, do you feel there's a management gap in Britain? Do you have British managers? Or?
Yeah, of course. The first thing I'll say is that I really believe that the company with the best people wins. And you hire B talent, they're going to attract C's. You hire A talent, they're going to attract A pluses. And when you're scaling a company and it's hyper growth, always the bottleneck is your middle management infrastructure. That is the most important thing. And a CEO's most important job is building a high performance team, right? Setting crystal clear direction, creating a safe environment, and getting those best people.
What's the one thing? I mean, it's probably not a fair question, but what's the one thing you look for in a recruit? I mean, you're recruiting a senior manager. You're growing like mad. What is the one thing? Is there one thing that makes you think this is the guy I want?
Drive. And there are so many driven people here in London, and you can just see it around the room. And the thing that's great here, you know, Americans don't think global typically, but here in Europe, you do. You have to. So you've got the money, you've got the assets. You totally have the big firms. It's the financial capital of the world. So I think there's a great opportunity. You know, the one thing we were talking about yesterday, the secret sauce of Silicon Valley and the mentorship is that genealogy of these companies who've been successful, and then these entrepreneurs or leaders, CEOs, or great technical guys, they go and they mentor the next guys, you know, and really kind of build up that network. And you know, what's amazing is that the more you kind of give back like that, the more you get in return. And a good example is Aaron Levy, who's the CEO of Box. He grabbed me, I don't know, 6-7 years ago. I think it was 22 years old. And
he was 22 years old.
He was 22 years old.
Going to be sick.
Huh? He's still 22.
Yeah, well, I think he's 28, but he still doesn't shave. So, but it's, you know, it's. I can tell you, I've learned a lot.
He taught you. 22.
He taught me a lot of things. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Gosh, I think mentoring is something we're beginning to do here. I mean, it's slow. It's not something. It's actually not something. I keep talking about the sort of British DNA. I don't think it's something we're that used to as people. It's not something that comes easily to us, but we are doing it. I mean, Tech City is certainly doing it. Renaud, what do you look for if you're? I want to join your company. What would be the thing that I could persuade you? Please.
I think we look for people who can take us to the next level. So the advantage of the Valley is that we have a talent pool that has gone through these steps of growing a company from 3 people like we did to 350 and more, to thousands of people. So there's this talent pool of knowing how to deal with the chaos of a small structure, how to organize things better so that the entire team can work better. So I think this type of profiles we look at really closely. There's a lot of talent in London, but I think fewer people have gone through the training that growing a startup gives you. And that's the skills I think we're slightly missing here. But there's a lot of great companies out here. We find our management team is coming from, in London, specifically is coming from larger companies like Google and others. So we find exactly the right people we need to, exactly like you said, internationalize. It's not something that came naturally for us. I'm French, so I always thought about internationalization, but it was a battle to get it accepted by everyone in the company, whereas now we're pretty much all on board. We have the right team here also to make it possible. It's not one market. Europe is not one market. It's multiple markets. We're expanding in a bunch of countries, and every country has different payment methods. They have different security measures where you have to put your servers, the type of people you can hire. So there's a lot of differences that we get here.
Any more questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, my name's Mike Trapp. I don't have a company anymore as I sold it in an exit. But I really wanted to both echo what Brent said about the issue of scalability in the UK. And to me, it's absolutely crucial. Our business would have been 5-6 times bigger if we'd been in the US as a home market. And this is a key issue for entrepreneurs at a time when even our supposedly pro-business government is being equivocal about the EU and about immigration and talent. And it just seems to me that the business voices are noticeable by their absence in the recent debate. So I really wanted to kind of ask the panel if they felt that, in political expediency, was winning out versus a true pro-business culture here.
Gosh, Brent, I'll hand that hot potato to you.
No, I think it's a really, really good point. I think what I did appreciate, and actually I did sign the Prime Minister's letter where he said he pushed for renegotiation of the EU contract, and I think that was basically, one of the area that I think many of us in this room would like to see pushed through is this ability to launch businesses more easily across the whole of Europe, and that's exactly right. So I do think, and I'm sure that will be on the agenda as one of the negotiating points. I think you're right in that. Is there a fear that we'll end up out of Europe, and what will that do? That's a much more complicated issue, but I think most of us would hope that argument will be won. I think weirdly what's happened with the threat of UKIP and the National Front in France is actually that the rest of the EU are taking that more seriously and seeing that the EU has to change. So I actually think that while previously I would have been like, God, has he got any chance of this? Now I actually think he may well have a chance. On immigration, I get very disappointed by the lack of intelligent debate on immigration. I'm an immigrant to this country as well, despite the relatively English accent. I agree that what we do in terms of attracting bright people here and then making sure they leave the country is nuts. And so I think there's a lot, but that debate is being led by the Daily Mail and it seems like the national press should realize they're doing a disservice to the country. I think, and politicians I think are therefore too scared to have an intelligent debate about immigration.
Okay, any more? Yep.
Yeah, okay, there we go. My question is for Renaud. I've always had this question about creating these marketplaces where there's a buyer and seller, and how you deal with the refunds and this interaction, because at the end of the day, Eventbrite is the face, and people look at it and say, you know what, I'm going to go on this trusted platform to purchase something that somebody else sells.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that? What's
Very
your
good
biggest
question.
takeaway that you've had from this?
Well, establishing trust, I think, is critical. You said that you trust our platform, which I like. Thank you. That's exactly our goal, is to make sure we're transparent on a lot of things, that we have the right back-end processes to catch fraud. We have a lot of fraud, people trying to process an event like this one, but it's not a real event, and they still take your credit cards and expect a payout. So we had to invest a lot in fraud and risk. We have about 15 people in the company, that's all they do, just to maintain that trust and the fact that you can call us 24/7 to ask about your problem, whatever it is. I think all these pieces put together make yourself become a trusted marketplace, and that's where we're going slowly towards. We had to build our organizer inventory first, and now we have so much to offer that people come to us directly, and that's how you become a marketplace.
I want to bring Keith in here because your business Docusign is entirely based on security.
Yes.
If that was exposed to fraud, or it would fail. How do you make people trust it?
Yeah. That is the most important aspect in what we do, because we are a global trusted network. We have 40 million unique users. We put 40,000 on a day, 188 countries, some of the biggest companies in the world. It is, we look at it as the Docusign Trust platform. We bank class security, carrier grade availability, and we've got an army of security guys, some of the best in the world. And then the other thing that we've done is we've facilitated the creation of the XTTM standard, where on the board of governors we have the CIO of FedEx, we have the CISO of HP, of Microsoft, Kevin Mandia, probably the most famous security guy in the U.S., the CISO United States Postal Service. We're over here now bringing in European board of governors, and that is the most important thing.
Yeah. Time for two more. Just you speak up.
My name is Tom Latchford and I run a company called Brazen IT and we're trying to help charities through technology. So I suppose, thank you. So I'm a young entrepreneur and everyone harps on about at events like this about how you need to raise loads of money and how it's difficult to do that in the UK. So we did that and last week got $2.7 million, but we didn't find that hard. The thing that I find really hard is that I know I'm probably going to cock up and do that a lot in the next few years, and it's probably easy to waste $2.7 million once you've done it. The really difficult thing I find is trying to get people like you at the front who have kind of been there, done it, to help somebody like me who looks a bit scruffy and...
How old are you?
I'm 28. I know I look 12, but I do have grey hair.
I didn't mean that.
So the question is...
You look a lot younger than I do.
When you were my age and you were a bit clueless, how did you go up to people like you and get them to help you and share your knowledge?
Keith. Keith was never clueless.
How did I get somebody like that?
How do you persuade people to believe in you at such a young age when you're starting out?
Same as you, just pure charisma now. People go where they're asked. When we first started Ariba, I approached who I think is one of the greatest CEOs of all time, John Chambers at Cisco. And I just said, hey, and they were a customer. I said, this thing is scaling, this is going to be big and all that. And I go, I'd just love to talk with you from time to time.
But how did you, I think the question really is, how did you get that? How did you do that? Did you just knock on his door? Did you ring him up? Did you play golf with him? How did this happen?
I actually just rang him up.
You just rang him up?
Yeah.
Cold
call. And they were a customer, right? They were rolling us out enterprise-wide. And, as I mentioned to you yesterday, it was an amazing experience. I meet with him once a month for breakfast, and it's just like, ask me anything you want, ask me anything you want. And by the way, I also asked him to go on the board, but he was too focused on Cisco. And, I could literally ask any question. After about a year, he goes, I come in one morning, and we always drink Diet Coke and a chocolate donut. And he goes, he's from West Virginia. He goes, Keith, I know what you're thinking. I know what you're thinking. I go, John, what am I thinking? Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? And I go, I was thinking that. He goes, well, because somebody did it for me. See, when I came out from Boston, I didn't know a lot. And somebody did this for me. His name was Lou Platt. God bless his soul. He was the CEO of HP. And I asked him, why are you doing this? And he told me because somebody did it for him. So Keith, the only thing I want in return is you do it for somebody else. And I think that describes the magic of Silicon Valley.
Brilliant. Brent, when you were starting last minute with Martha, how did you persuade people to believe in you? Because you're pretty young then.
We were pretty similar age. I was 29. I think, Tom, it sounds like you've already done the really hard part, which is get the money. I think the question is, did you get smart money? Because that was the way we got smart people to help us, really. So it was, we sent we sent a letter, I think, or whatever, hard, almost not even email those days, but to 20 people, half of which replied and half of which agreed to invest. The agreeing to invest, you get it. It's just being a salesman, right? It's just being a determined salesman, being passionate, excited, and that sort of stuff. But I think, so the other way I've done, I guess, people who have a call on my time now are those people now who I'm on their advisory boards. So I'm not on the main boards. I am on too many main boards as well. But I'm on about 10 advisory boards, and I've invested in lots of others. But so the advisory boards have sort of been the easy way for me when I meet someone who's just got this dynamism and passion for what they're doing. And there's a couple where I don't even believe in the company. I really don't. I just think the guy is so compelling and passionate that I want to just help and just do that. And so I think advisory boards boards one way, but I guess your follow-up question, well, how do you get through to that person to even get the meeting, to have the advisory board? And that, again, you know the answer. It's blagging, it's determination, and it's probably social proof. I think the reason why I like the concept of angel list, we talked about trust, is it's the social proof of angel list. It's like, here's these 3 other people. And so it's sort of like, if you can't get anyone I know to vouch that you're a good idea, then it's, or alternatively, just write a really good email. And that means really brief, 2 paragraphs. And there's got to be something in it for the person at the other end of the table. And one of the things we've alluded to here is actually access to young talent. You know, we all want, for our businesses, we're all selfish too. We can be altruistic, we're all selfish. And what we all want to know is, well, Keith said as well, what's going on in the younger demographic? Who are the really bright people coming out? You know, everyone wants access to them.
Yeah. I think we're running out of time. Have we got time for one more? One more question.
One burning question here.
Oh, go on then. Oh, right at the back, right at the back.
Hi, does this work? No. Hi. Does that work? Yes.
Yeah.
If we take the antithesis of entrepreneurs, we look at big supertanker corporate structures, the big businesses of the world. And particularly in areas like retail, they're facing the fastest changing environment they've probably ever seen. Is there therefore not a solution, which I think Brent was about to allude to, of corporate venturing, where you have the best of the big guys with their scalability, their huge piles of cash they've been sitting on since 2008, and linking that together with the entrepreneurs, and both sides learning a lot from each other in that process? Does that happen in America? I think it's got a tradition in Germany of happening quite well. Is that not a solution to a lot of these problems we've been talking about today?
Brent,
just super quickly, because again, I don't want to do a sales pitch, but Founders Forum, we do this under a consulting bit. So we work for Tesco, Glaxo, Hammerson's, News Corp, et cetera, and we help them work with startups because of exactly that gap you've identified. I find it so hard for companies I was advising for them to engage with these big, giant corporates. And the corporates actually, from their side, they want to do it, but they find it very hard too. So trying to get, for example, when the pitch was to Glaxo, to the entrepreneur saying, the 10 people in Glaxo who can make the decision are going to be in the room if you come and meet them now. Those people who you'd have to travel all the world. That works. I think the next point is, and I've written about this briefly, but could the government do more in terms of tax to unleash all that cash in corporates? Yeah. Could they offer tax breaks to corporates to invest in startups? I'd be surprised if we didn't see that.
Final question, very last question.
Final, but what?
No.
One more, I think we're going to have to go on.
Hello? Yeah, hi, I'm Ben Rogers. I feel a bit of a fraud here because I'm a founder of a charity rather than a business, Centre for London, which is the London think tank, and we've done a lot of work on London's digital economy. And we're currently in the middle of a crowdfunding campaign for a project called Connecting Tech City, which will connect tech city firms and learning programs, skills programs to the local schools and colleges in the area. And I've got sort of 2 questions, one about skills and one about inclusivity. For those of you that have experience at the US and London, are we producing young people with the digital skills in the way that the States is? And are there things we can learn about creating a sort of more inclusive digital cluster in London? And it does sometimes seem that it's quite a sort of white, middle class cluster. Are there ways in which we can create a really inclusive digital economy in London? And do donate to our crowdfunding campaign, Connecting Tech City on the Indiegogo. Thanks.
So I think universities are always slower to adapt technology and teach it. I think there's a gap of 5 years usually between when a technology becomes fully used by developers and when it's being taught at university. I think accelerating that, because it goes so fast that you come out of college but you don't have any of the programming skills, for example, that you need really to work in a web startup. I don't know about the other fields, but in tech, I think we need to be a lot faster into adapting the curriculum to match the demands of the field. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you're going to end up working for one of the giant companies that has technology from 5 years ago instead of the startup that's using today's latest.
Brent, I know you're passionate about education. What do you think we're producing the right people?
I think a lot's happening to change it, right? I don't think most countries will say they're producing the right people yet. And I think you mentioned the curriculum changes. I think that's a big step. And I think online learning, in talking about democratizing it or opening it up or inclusivity, I think online learning is going to be a fantastic way to do that. And it's happening.
Right. I think I really have to stop it there. I know you need one more question. Last one, quickly.
I'm Shankar Khemkar. I'm an orthopedic surgeon, not an entrepreneur, but I'm the proud dad of an entrepreneur that's studying.
The fourth.
I want to ask a question to Keith. Keith, you talked earlier about failure and success. In Britain, we are still very conservative, and if somebody has failed, we don't take it very kindly. What can somebody do if he has failed to win back the confidence of the society and the community and get the support? Excellent.
I think jump back in the ring.
How do you do that? I mean, it's easier said than done.
Well, like Winston Churchill, right? World War I.
Oh, yeah,
he went back in the trenches. Well, he went in the trenches.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
I think it is going back in the trenches. But also, I think one of the key things in terms of entrepreneurship, business in general, is it's about relationships. So, everybody goes, well, networking is so important. Oh, Keith, you have a big network. How do you do that with network? I go, no, I don't network. Build friendships, right? And that's over time. And to have friends and trusted advisors who are there with you through thick and thin when you're going to fall on your face, and everybody does, that's the best thing. I think that's the most important thing.
I think we've got to stop it there. I've heard a new phrase, build friendships, not networks, not networking. So there's time after this for lots of building friendships. I want to say a big thank you to our panel, Brent Hoberman, Keith Krach and Renaud Visage.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd also like to thank Chris Blackhurst for chairing this panel. It's been really insightful.